Welcome to episode 49 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined in virtual studio by my co-host, my good friend, my colleague, and the man who is no longer a man of leisure, John Scott Sloat.
Yeah, no more vacation for me, Doc. No more.
Yes, back to the grind.
Yeah, back in the home state, Indiana.
Yeah. So, did you enjoy your vacation down in Florida?
We did. It was nice to get away. A lot of vitamin D from the sunshine. Lots of mini golf. Lots of walking. Lots of swimming. Stuff like that. So yeah, it was very relaxing, quite enjoyable.
And not to go too personal here, but do you and your bride share a similar philosophy of vacationing? Obviously, some people have very different. Some people want to be like, let's fill the day with doing a million things. And others are like, well, maybe we'll do one thing and then we'll nap, relax by the pool, that kind of thing. Do you guys find yourself more or less on the same page in terms of pacing?
Yeah, I think so. We like to find things to do in the morning usually, and then come back, eat lunch, relax a little bit, and then head out for afternoon/evening activities. So, and then make it back in time for a movie or a TV show, whatever's going on.
And did you find your requisite coffee shop?
Yeah, I found a couple. I found one called, Kookaburra coffee, which was quite good, and then Rialto Coffee Lab that had really, really good coffee. They had a coffee that tastes like Apple Jacks. If you've ever had Apple Jacks, a cereal,
not in a long time.
Yeah, and it was like returning to a nostalgic memory drinking this coffee. I was like, oh my goodness, that tastes like Apple Jacks. It was quite good, like a lot of brown sugar notes in it, different things like that.
Wow, that might actually be a coffee that I could drink black.
Yeah, it was really good. It was a really, really good cup of coffee.
Well, we would love for you, our listeners, to connect with us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at V&S-Pod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on Facebook. So find our Various and Sundry podcast page, give us a like, give us a follow. And you can also do us a solid by going on to the podcast app on the Apple platform and leaving us a 5-star rating and a review. And we do have one new review this week, so we're grateful for that. And in some ways, it's actually an appropriate review because this is the week that Ohio State will play that team up north. And this reviewer enjoys the podcast despite what he referred to as, was it nauseating? Was that the term that he used?
I think that was the word he used. Yeah.
Okay. The nauseating Ohio State talk. So
yeah, he or she used, yes.
Yes. I was using the generic he. So
yeah.
Indeed. So we would love for you to do that. It does help people find the podcast. So let's get right into our discussion of the week in sports. And John, we have to start with your beloved Jets. What happened this weekend, John?
Yeah, so I'm rooting for them to get the number one pick, which means they need to lose as many games as possible. And they're doing a good job of that because they've lost every game thus far. But they were up with, I think, 10 seconds to go. And they sent the house on a blitz, sent everybody except for 3 people. And the Raiders scored a touchdown and won the game with, I think, 5 seconds on the clock, something like that, or the clock expired. And then this morning they fired their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, so I'm not typically one who's inclined to go a little deeper onto the Jets here, but I feel like this is a moment where we need to go a little bit deeper because they were leading the Raiders, as you said,
almost the whole game.
Yeah, and with about, I think it was about 13 seconds left on the clock, the Las Vegas Raiders, which I'm still getting used to saying, I think everybody is, had the ball at about midfield, about the 50-yard line, maybe just inside of Jets territory. They have no timeouts. There's 13 seconds left, and they have to score a touchdown. A field goal does them nothing because they're down 4.
To win the game. Yep.
Yes. And so I remember looking at the win probability. You know how ESPN on a game tracker will have the win probability thing? And
Sure.
it had the Jets at 99.6 before that play. And so let's just get right down to it, John. Who in their right mind sends basically an all-out blitz and leaves single coverage against Henry Ruggs, who is arguably one of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL? Who does that, John, if you're not trying to lose?
Well, let me take it one step further. Who puts a rookie cornerback, undrafted rookie cornerback, named Lamar Jackson, by the way, on the first round draft pick, who is, I think, the fourth fastest player, according to Next Level Stats, in the NFL.
Yes. And so now be honest with me, John. Are you ready? Because I know you're not a conspiracy theory guy. You are the opposite of the conspiracy theory guy. And yet, do you think that there was any measure of intentionality on the part of the coaching staff to do that?
I don't think so. And the reason I think that is because those coaches have had a terrible, terrible season. They most likely will not get head coaching jobs, or they won't get coordinator jobs, let alone head coaching jobs, perhaps ever again. And so it's in their best interest to win. Now, if you had said, is the front office tanking? Absolutely. They've cut any player, any highly paid player that we have. They've cut veterans, all sorts of things in order to tank. But the coaches are trying to, I think the coaches are trying to win, and they were trying to bring the house in order to mess up Derek Carr, and it clearly didn't work.
I don't know, John. I don't know. That just seems to be so obviously stupid in terms of a coaching decision. And it's not like Greg Williams is a sort of new coordinator or someone who's just getting their feet wet in the NFL. He's been around a long time. It just seems hard, though. Again, I agree with you. It's hard to know, well, then what's in it for Greg Williams?
Exactly. And that's my point, is like, these guys there was nothing in it for them. They're trying to trying to motivate their players to win every game so they can get jobs down the road, because they're getting fired soon.
I don't know. It's just hard to believe that he's that dumb in that situation. It really is.
Well, and he didn't mask it well, because John Gruden brought in his best offensive receiver to block, to pick up blitzers in that moment. So it's not like the Raiders didn't see this coming. They knew it was coming. And Greg Williams did it anyway.
It was just breathtakingly stupid. And
let's remember, Greg Williams is also the guy who offered money to knock people out in New Orleans. He was that defensive coordinator from Bountygate.
Sure. But there's a difference between being dirty and sinister and being remarkably stupid. I mean, it's just, I sat there thinking, I can't imagine what is the thought process going through his head that makes him think this is our best chance to win the game.
Yeah, I don't know either. I completely agree that it's remarkably stupid. I don't think it was tanking, though. Like, I don't think he's saying, I'll do this and there's a chance we'll lose the game, probably.
Okay.
I think Jets fans were very excited about losing that game. Yeah.
I think, by the way, the NFL needs to go to the NBA system of the draft lottery.
A lottery, yeah.
Because
I had that argument this morning, yeah.
It's bad for the league. It's bad for the league to have this look. And, again, players don't tank. You're right. Players do not tank. They want to play and play well because even if they're on a bad team, they want to get signed somewhere else and make money. So the players out there aren't like, oh, let's make a dumb play here so that we lose the game. They're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches are in a little bit different window. I don't know. Obviously, you've got the higher ups, the management and ownership who are like, oh, we definitely want to tank, but they can't ever come out and actually say we want to tank.
Unless you're Mark Cuban, who said it on national radio and was fined, I think, $100,000 or something like that.
Yeah, pocket change for him. But
yes.
In any case, the NFL needs to switch that up. I'd say the other big NFL story was probably the Browns beating the Titans in a game that the final score was not indicative of really how the game went, because the Browns were up 38-7 at the half and managed to hang on and win by 6. But they absolutely put it to the Titans. And that was probably the biggest win by the Browns in, I'm not a Browns fan, so I don't know, but like within the last, 4 or 5 years at least, because they actually beat somebody who's good. Like, we all recognize Tennessee is a really good playoff caliber team. Up to this point, the Browns really have not beaten anybody that you looked at and thought, that's a really good football team. Now they've done it.
And they clinched a winning record as well.
Yeah. They sit at 9-3. Haven't clinched a playoff spot yet, but they've got to be close. I think they got the Ravens and the Steelers next. So those could easily be 2 more losses right there.
Sure.
But who knows? But looks like all those predictions of the Browns making the playoffs were a year early last year and are now coming to fruition this year.
The other big news out of the NFL was Jalen Hurts replaced Carson Wentz in Philadelphia and played all right.
Yeah, played all right. I have no idea what's going on with Carson Wentz.
No, it's not. It feels like he's got the yips,
Something broke him. I don't know what's going on there.
I've heard Carson Wentz to Indianapolis, actually.
I don't know. I think my guess is the Colts will draft a quarterback, and they'll try to do some maneuvering in the draft. They won't be able to get, obviously, Trevor Lawrence or probably even Justin Fields, but they might be able to move up into the middle of the first round and get someone like a Kyle Trask or a Mac Jones or that kid out of North Dakota State that's supposed to be pretty good. So we'll see.
All right, you want to talk a little college football?
Let's do it. I'm a little surprised, but Ohio State's gamble paid off and that they were able to play this week. So they canceled last week's game, got back on the field, and they put a whooping on a not very good Michigan State team. Beat them by 40. And what was impressive was the fact that they were missing 3 starting offensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they shuffled everything around, they had one guy playing in his normal position. And they still ran the ball down Sparty's throat, played especially well, given those circumstances. So it was very much a statement win for the program. And I think it solidified their spot in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings. As long as they win out, they should be fine in getting in the playoff.
And they have Michigan this weekend, right?
Theoretically, this is the week they're supposed to play the team up north, but that team up north shut down all football activities. Maybe it was a week ago now because of COVID. And so we'll see, which if they cannot play, then Ohio State has to hope for one of 2 things. That either there's another Big Ten team available for them to play that they can go ahead and substitute them, or they're going to have the Big Ten change their current rule to allow them to play in the conference championship game because they would be a game short.
Mm-hmm. And they definitely want Ohio State in there. I mean,
well, Yeah, and here's the thing, and this is where all of our IU fans are gonna, maybe lose their mind. I don't know, but if Ohio State doesn't get in because they don't have enough games, then IU gets in. But they did play head to head.
Yeah.
And Ohio State did win that game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bad look for the conference to have their obvious best team and the only team with a chance to make the college football playoff not to play in their college football and not to play in their conference championship. So I think if that's necessary, they will change it.
Mm-hmm.
But IU did have a good win over Wisconsin. And of course, really not much else going on. Oh, I guess the big game, one of the big games was Coastal Carolina and BYU.
Yeah. My favorite story from that game was the BYU team put all their stuff on a couple of trucks, like all their equipment.
Yeah.
And drove it out there and like, it's tight. If they hit traffic, they may not make it in time.
It was like a 36-hour trek or something like that. It was pretty crazy. And Coastal Carolina won. Mm-hmm. Though I did find it humorous. Did you see the T-shirts they were selling that they were calling the game Mullets versus Mormons?
No, I didn't see that. That's pretty funny.
Yes. So anyway,
I did hear it called the Tinder game. Yeah, just trying to match up with somebody at the last minute. Yeah,
yeah. 2 weeks away from the NBA season starting as well here. Mm-hmm. So hard to believe since it feels like we just crowned a champion. It feels like 2 weeks ago. But how optimistic are you that we're going to have much of an NBA season?
I don't know. I think these leagues seem to be just trying to muddle their way to the playoffs where they make all their money in playoff TV money, and that seems to be how baseball played it and how the NBA played it with the bubble. And I think how the NBA is going to play it again is like, do what you can to get through the regular season and, go off winning percentage rather than wins, whatever have you. And just get to the playoffs, and that's where people make their money. That's where they make their money.
Yeah, I can envision them having to, because of a number of cancellations. I can envision them actually expanding the playoffs and addressing it that way. So we'll see. Well, we need to move on to our main topic, and far from being a serious topic this week, we've decided to go a little bit more lighthearted. And we're going to talk about our favorite movies. And we're going to go through some different genres here. But I think we need to make some disclaimers on the front end, right, John?
Yes. These are not all family friendly. Maybe read the reviews before you plop the whole family down to watch one of these movies.
Yeah, you can check out. I usually check out IMDb, and then what's the Focus on the Family site that?
I don't know the Focus on the Family site. I check IMDb usually.
Yeah, I think Focus on the Family has a site that does some similar stuff in terms of giving you a heads up on content. But in any case, how often do you end up actually going to the movie theater, John?
3-4 times a year, maybe once a quarter. Usually there's one or two big Marvel releases that I like to go to the theater for with friends or students, or and then there's usually something like Star Wars over Christmas that I like to go with friends too. But other than that, I don't really go to the theater that much unless there's something like I really want to see. How about yourself? Do you make it pretty regularly?
Rarely. Okay. I think maybe. So typically when we get together with Kate's family, we go, the last few years around Christmas, there's been a Star Wars movie that we've typically gone to see in the theater. But beyond that, I might go once a year. And I'm curious to see now, I don't want to get us too sidetracked here, but did you hear, by the way, that Warner Brothers announced, that one of the major movie studios, Warner Brothers, announced that this upcoming year, for the entirety of 2021, they're going to do simultaneous launches of their movies, both in the theater and through, I think it's HBO Max.
Oh, wow. Really? No,
Yeah.
I did not hear that. No.
So I've seen a lot of discussion of is COVID going to be what ends up putting to bed the whole movie theater industry?
Well, did you see the way they've released, not if they do it the way Disney did it. Did you see the way they released Mulan, the live action Mulan movie?
No.
So because it was supposed to be in theaters right as everything hit, they put it on Disney Plus. So Andrew and I one Saturday were like, "Hey, yeah, we heard this is on Disney Plus. Let's go check it out." Well, Disney Plus, you pay a certain amount to get, right, just like any streaming service.
Right.
Well, then Mulan was an additional $30 to watch. And so if they're going to do it like that, where you have to have a streaming service and then pay more, it's not going to work in the long run.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they're doing, though. I think it's just if you have a subscription to HBO Max, then you automatically have access to it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I know that movie theaters have been one of the parts of our economy that's been hit especially hard with COVID. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like, say 2 years from now, after the pandemic has passed and, things hopefully start to rally a bit. Will it be back to what it was pre-COVID stuff, or was this sort of a decisive game changer? But before we jump into the different genres, John, do you have a favorite movie genre?
I don't think so. I think what I'm looking for in a movie is I'm looking for something clever that's telling either a unique story or an entertaining story, or trying to say something with its movie. If it fits in any of those buckets, I'm really pretty happy with the movie itself. How about yourself? Do you have a genre you tend toward?
No, I tend to, I don't know. A lot just depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes you want to watch something where you think, I don't care if there's much of a plot. I just want to laugh. So find me a comedy that may not have much of a plot, but it's going to be funny. It's going to entertain me. And other times, I want a movie that I think I want to have to think about this. I want a movie to pull me in and to force me to try to figure it out along the way. And then, sometimes there's also the just the pure action flick where you're like, I just want to see, things blow up and people get beat up and that kind of stuff. And, don't care too much about a plot necessarily. So.
Yeah, I agree. It has a lot to do with mood for sure.
Yeah. So you ready to jump into our first genre here?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So we're going comedy. So we didn't really talk through how we wanted to do this. Do you want to alternate going back and forth, each of us giving one?
Sure. Why don't you, since I'm looking at comedy there, it looks like you have 4, and I have 3. Why don't you go first?
Yeah. So I'm going to start, and these are in no particular order. This is sort of the, these were the top 4 so I'm not saying this is the absolute best. But Raising Arizona, which came out in I want to say it was late 80s. It was a Coen Brothers movie, one of the early ones. And it had Nicolas Cage before he was really that big of a deal. And it had John Goodman.
Yeah.
And it's got, that was just one of those movies that I got exposed to in college. And then it's just stuck with me. I've got probably most of that movie memorized.
I've always heard you talk about this movie. I've never seen it. But looking at the photos on IMDb, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I'll have to.
I see a picture on here of Nicolas Cage with mutton chops.
Yep.
Yeah, he looks nasty.
It's pretty sweet. So, obviously, I've got a copy. So if you ever want to borrow it,
yeah, no, I'd love to sometime. So my first comedy, and some of these I debated on what category to put them in because, and so I just went to IMDb and said, what's the first category they really give to it? And And this is actually, I think, one of my. I often say this is my favorite movie, but Stranger Than Fiction. Have you ever seen it?
I've not seen it. I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
So it's starring Will Ferrell, who's in a lot of stupid stuff. I'll be real about that. But he plays a little bit more of a serious role. He works for the IRS, and he begins to hear a narrator speaking to him. And the narrator tells him that he's going to die, and he's trying to like do all these things and figure out what to do with that. And it's a very clever plot. It has a lot of stars in it, even though it wasn't a big deal. I saw it for the first time when I was in college, and just really have always enjoyed it.
Yeah. So my second pick here was Tommy Boy, and classic comedy with Chris Farley and David Spade. Lots of just classic scenes in there that make me laugh all the time. So Tommy Boy comes in is my next choice there. I assume you've seen that.
Oh yeah. Love Tommy Boy. Fat guy in a little coat.
Yes, indeed. What's your next one?
This one's a little bit more off the wall. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Our Marcos Navarro actually introduced this to me. It's shot in stop caption, I think is what it's called. So basically they have these little puppets, and they move them and take a picture of them and stitch them all together. That's the movie. And it's got George Clooney. It's got Bill Murray's in there. There's a number of people, but it's just a really different, easy watching story about a fox.
Okay. All right. My next one in the comedy genre, and this was hard to know where to put because it's kind of it's a combination of comedy and drama to some degree. So it probably fits more into the rom-com category. But When Harry Met Sally,
I haven't seen that. I've definitely heard of it.
Billy Crystal, Meg Ryan. This is one of Kate and I's favorite movies. I think in part because the two lead characters start off as friends, and there's the whole discussion of, can a guy and a girl really be friends? And I think part of it is and Billy Crystal's great, but I think part of why it resonates is there's some overlap with Kate and I's own story of how we started off as friends and ended up dating and married. So,
all right, my next one is a classic movie. It's probably the most comedy movie I have on here. What About Bob?
Yes,
with Bill Murray, which I know you love and have seen before.
Yeah, it's actually it's the last one on my list. So there's 1 point of overlap there on our comedy list.
Yeah, I think our only point of overlap on the list.
It might be. That movie is just fabulous. Bill Murray is a comedic genius.
Yeah, he's so good in that movie. And yes, I just love everything about it, from the goldfish to the quotable lines.
Yes, indeed. And little known fact, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. So there's a scene in there. So when Bob is having his first consultation with Dr. Marvin, and Dr. Marvin gives him a copy of his book, and then he says, "I'm actually going to be on vacation for like the next 6 weeks." And so Bob starts to freak out, and Dr. Marvin says, "That's all right. I have a colleague who will be on call, and you can contact him if you need to see someone before I get back." Do you happen to know the name of that colleague in the movie?
Was it Harmon?
It was Dr. Harmon.
Was it?
Yes. And I didn't catch that for like the first few times I watched through the movie. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, no way. That's pretty cool. So anyway, ready to move on to our next genre here?
Sure. You want me to go first this time?
Sure. We're moving on to drama here.
Drama. So the first movie I chose two in this one. Spotlight. Have you ever seen Spotlight?
I haven't.
It's about the Boston Globe and their investigative journalism team that uncovered the Catholic sex scandal from goodness, what was that? Or mid 2000s.
I have heard of it now that you describe it. Yes.
It's a really, really excellent, well done movie.
Yeah, my first one under the category of drama. Again, not saying this is like the greatest movie ever made, but Hoosiers.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of sports movies tend to struggle because you have a hard time simulating sports action that looks realistic, that doesn't just look cheesy.
Agreed. Yeah.
And so, part of it is, it's just a classic movie. I'm a big sports fan, big basketball fan. And, we move here to Indiana from the great state of Ohio and come to find out that my dentist was in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how much more small town Indiana does that get? That you move to Warsaw, Indiana, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, your dentist was in Hoosiers.
Yeah, that's awesome. My next one under drama, I chose a sports movie actually. 42, with the story of Jackie Robinson with Chadwick Boseman.
Yep.
Who recently passed away. For a sports movie, I thought that they did a good job of simulating some of the action and some of the old time baseball movements that were so iconic from that era. So, 42.
By the way, I think in terms of sports movies, baseball by far has the best collection of movies. Like we could name several really good baseball movies. You're harder pressed to name good football movies, basketball movies. There's something about baseball that for whatever reason lends itself to good movie making.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, but I think you're totally right. I can think of two really good football movies off the top of my head. But no, yeah, there's a ton of baseball movies. You're
ton of them. Yeah. So my next drama movie here was Inception. Christopher Nolan movie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I love how it makes you think, and it messes with your perception of reality and what's real and what's not. So I enjoy watching that and going back and forth on what I think is actually happening. So
it was one of those movies you had to watch twice to like get it.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And you could still go back now, watch it again, and realize something new about the movie. Absolutely.
Let's move on to the action category.
Okay. No, I got two. I'll go ahead. And this is probably where the disclaimer is. These are not necessarily family friendly. V for Vendetta. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't. No.
But it takes from church history actually. The Guy Fawkes individual in the United Kingdom was a Catholic who wanted to kill the Puritans, so he was wheeling powdered kegs underneath Parliament, was going to blow it up. It takes that guy, takes that event, puts it in a dystopian future and all these things, and it's about free speech. It's about it also has some 1984 influences. It's really, really good.
Okay. So I only have one entry here, but it's 3 movies. So the Bourne trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty groundbreaking in terms of the way that they filmed the action sequences, and even the car chases kind of went next level in terms of advancing that part of action movies and making that an even more significant feature in other movies. But I think Bourne trilogy, so that counts as my one action entry, even though it's 3 movies. I really only count the first 3. The fourth one, I guess there's 5 of them total. But
I was about to say, it feels like they've made several.
Well, they had the original 3, and then they made one without Jason Bourne being, without Matt Damon being, and then they brought him back for a 5th one. So that was the first 3 are really good.
All right. So my last action one, and I don't know if this counts as an action movie. But I chose Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I don't think lots of people really enjoy, but it's got like a small cult following. It takes this really do nothing individual and makes him the hero, where he is just really passive throughout the whole movie, and it's has some video game things tied in there to like arcades, so like old school video games. It's a fascinating movie.
Let's move on to our superhero / fantasy / sci-fi category.
Our junk drawer category.
Yeah. Is my turn to go first, or is yours?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go with Lord of the Rings, the trilogy there, not the Hobbit movies. Was not as thrilled with the Hobbit movies, but I think the Lord of the Ring movies were especially well done, even at points where they divert from the book a little bit. I think they were excellent, and I regularly go back to them.
Yeah, no, they were excellent movies. And then my first one in this junk drawer category, I'm going to go. I really enjoy the Harry Potter movies. Just to film all those movies in a span of, I think, 12 years with all the same actors and actresses for the most part in any major role, except for Dumbledore, was really, really quite an accomplishment. Yeah,
it was well done. I'm going to go with another trilogy for my next entry, the Dark Knight trilogy. I think, again, Christopher Nolan coming through and having a little different twist and spin on the sort of the Batman mystique.
Yeah, he did a really good job with those. I really enjoyed those. My final one in the superhero fantasy sci-fi was 10 Cloverfield Lane. You ever seen this?
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it.
Okay. The basic plot is girl gets in car wreck, wakes up in a bunker with these two men, and one of the men is John Goodman, and John Goodman is telling her, the world is ending outside, and so we're stuck here. We're a family now, and we're living. And so it's kind of going through that. It's really, really good.
Man, John Goodman is just so fun.
Oh yeah,
he is so good, and he's not just a comedic actor, though. I think that's what he's best known for. He can expand beyond that a little bit. So
in 10 Cloverfield Lane, he's horrifying.
Yeah,
he's truly scary.
My last entry under this category here is the Matrix trilogy.
Yeah,
it's a combination of it's kind of the mind bending, what's real, what's not real, and that marked a milestone in movie making in terms of the way that action sequences were filmed, in terms of like the fight scenes.
Sure,
that was a definite kind of eye opener when you first saw that. You're like, wow, this is unlike any kind of action movie scenes I've ever watched before.
Two things on the Matrix. One, it's 20 years. The first one's came out 20 years ago.
I know, it's crazy to think that.
And then the second thing is they're making another one.
Yeah, I'd heard that. Is that confirmed?
I believe so. Yeah.
Is Keanu coming back?
That's my understanding. Yeah, he's going to be in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
Well, that pretty much covers our favorite movies. I'm sure we'll both think of ones after the fact that we could have included, but I think it's probably time for us to move on to our athlete.
Yeah. You want me to run down these for us?
Yeah. Here's where we'll give a little disclaimer. We really don't have many good options here, folks.
No, 49 was not a great number, or still isn't a great number, I suppose. Ron Guidry, pitcher for the Yankees in the 70s and 80s. Tim Wakefield, pitcher for the Red Sox, I think most famously.
Yes, knuckleballer.
Yeah. I vividly remember him. Pitched until 2011.
Yep.
Bobby Mitchell. He was a NFL running back in the 50s and 60s for the Redskins and the Browns.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. A little before our time, though.
Yes. And do you want to run down a couple of the Ohio State guys?
Sure. We really just have one. Deontay Johnson was a fullback for the Buckeyes from 2004 to 2007. Part of what makes him noteworthy is that he was the son of Pepper Johnson, a legendary Ohio State player, and he and his dad are one of only 3 father-son pairs to both be captains at The Ohio State University.
Interesting.
One of the other ones is Kirk Herbstreit and his dad.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Well, Doc, who do you like on this list?
I'm not sure I like anybody.
Well, did you wear 49 at any point during your athletic career?
I did not. How about you?
Nope.
It's unfortunate that maybe Nate from Ohio didn't wear it, because this would have been his opportunity to win the weekly award here. But who do you want to lean towards here?
I probably lean towards Tim Wakefield. I think I tend to lean towards pitchers or players that I saw, and I did not see anybody else. Sure,
let's go with Tim Wakefield.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Doc. One thing we liked. Why don't you go first this week?
Yeah, so I have been enjoying a podcast that is produced by 9 Marks. It's called Bible Talk, and it's got Jim Hamilton, who's one of the best biblical theologians alive today, along with 2 other guys who are literally working their way through Genesis and taking a few chapters each episode. And they're just talking through all of the different biblical theological threads and connections and intertextual touch points in the text. And so it's really fascinating. They do a great job with it. And it helps you see another layer of depth in those Genesis narratives that maybe you haven't noticed before.
We've talked about that at some level, walking through a passage of scripture over a few episodes. So that's interesting. I'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah. What about you?
My one thing is I've mentioned this before. All Sides. It's a website that gives. We'll take a news story and then attach a rating to each of the stories. Like this one's from the right perspective or the far right perspective. This one's from the left or the far left, or this one's from the center. They just came out with an app. And so the app, they usually do 2-3 stories a day, and they'll attach 3 stories each from a different perspective on the political spectrum to that news story. And I've found it very helpful. It's a new app. It's just come out in the last few weeks.
Okay. Is there a subscription fee to that, or?
Totally free.
Wow.
Totally free. Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. So we've talked sports, we've talked movies, we've talked athletes that we don't care much about, and we've talked about one thing that we liked this week. So I think we're probably poised to go ahead and call mission accomplished.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, want to thank our listeners for joining us. And if you want to spread the word about the podcast, we'd love for you to do that. And post about it on social media. We've had a few people do that. We appreciate that. And if you have content suggestions, you can touch base with us on Twitter, on Facebook, by email, or if you know us personally, just shoot us a message. So we will look forward to talking again next week. So until next time, the Lord bless you all real good.
Later.